I used to think the forest was just trees, wind, and silence, an escape from the world's chaos. But after 10 years as a ranger in a national park bigger than some states, I've learned something people don't understand until it's too late. The quietest places hold the loudest secrets. And the things I've seen here, well, they stay with you long after you leave. If you stay with me until the end, I'll tell you the moment I realized the forest wasn't just watching me, it was trying to tell me something. And ignoring it almost got someone killed. When I first arrived in Pine Valley National Park, I thought I'd finally found my peace. I'd grown up in a concrete maze of a city, where sirens replaced songbirds, and the only green was what little grass grew between sidewalk cracks. I wanted purpose, something that meant protecting instead of surviving. Being a ranger felt like a calling, an oath to defend the land and the people who wandered through it. The first years were simple, predictable. Lost hikers, bear sightings, trail maintenance, the occasional reckless camper. But slowly, the park began showing me pieces of itself that weren't in any guidebook or training manual. Little disturbances at first, an abandoned campsite still warm when I arrived, claw marks too high on trees for any animal native to the area, whispers at dusk that sounded too human to be wind but too distorted to be a voice. I told myself it was exhaustion, imagination, the forest playing tricks. But the truth was much darker, and I wouldn't understand it until the night that changed everything. Chapter 1 begins at the heart of summer, our busiest season, when Pine Valley transforms from an untouched mantle of wilderness into a restless crossroads of tourists, backpackers, and thrill seekers. I was partnered that month with Emily, a rookie ranger barely a year out of training, but with a spirit I immediately liked. She had the kind of energy that reminded me why I started this job in the first place: hopeful, curious, fearless in a way only someone new to the woods can be. One morning, just after dawn, we received a call about a missing teenager, Logan, 17, last seen near the North Ridge Overlook. His parents reported he'd wandered off during a family hike after an argument. At first, it sounded like the usual case, someone blowing off steam, walking farther than intended, and getting turned around. But when we reached the spot he was last seen, the forest felt wrong, still, heavy, like the air was waiting for something. Emily knelt near a patch of disturbed soil, tracing her fingers along faint depressions. He was running, she murmured. I noticed it too, footprints spaced too far apart for casual walking, branches snapped at shoulder height. Then a strange pattern in the dirt, deep, sharp imprints shaped almost like hooves, but not quite. There were 4 of them, symmetrical, each spaced exactly where the next should be, like whatever made them was purposeful. Precise, no known animal in the region made prints like that, and they were heavier than anything smaller than a moose, but narrower, cleaner. We exchanged a look, both unnerved. We followed the trail deeper into the woods until it abruptly stopped at a clearing I had never seen before. The area looked wrong, too open, too quiet. The forest around it felt like it was holding its breath. And dead center lay Logan's backpack, torn open as though something had dragged its claws across it. Yet, in the dirt beside it, we saw something that gave us a flicker of hope. A footprint human, fresh, belonging to someone barefoot. And from its direction, it was clear Logan was moving away from whatever had chased him. We continued, calling his name, scanning tree lines, leaving markers for the next search team. Hours passed. The sun dipped behind ridges, casting long shadows that twisted into unfamiliar shapes. When night hit the forest, it hit hard, the temperature dropped, the sounds of insects vanished, and then we heard it, a voice calling out, distant but distinct, echoing between the trees. "Help, please help, Logan." We sprinted toward it, adrenaline surging, weaving through the dark like the branches were reaching for us. But as soon as we reached the next bend, everything stopped. The voice, the echoes, even the wind. Emily's flashlight beam swept across the trees, catching nothing but thick trunks and silence. "He was right here," she whispered, and then something snapped a branch behind us. Chapter 2 begins at the moment I realized the forest wasn't simply hiding Logan. It was warning us. When the branch cracked, it wasn't like the usual brittle snap of a falling limb. It was sharp, intentional, close. Emily whipped around, her beam landing on a stretch of darkness between the pines. I stepped forward, hand hovering over my belt, though we both knew a sidearm wasn't going to help us against something we couldn't even see. Then we saw movement. A flicker of shadow, a blur weaving through the trunks with unnatural speed. Too fast for a person, too smooth for an animal. Emily grabbed my arm. "We're not alone out here." She wasn't wrong. We radioed for backup, but the signal kept cutting out, like the forest was swallowing our voices before they reached anyone. We pressed on slowly, following a faint path through the brush until we reached an old fire road that hadn't been used in years. And that's when we found him. Logan sat on the ground near a fallen tree, arms wrapped around his knees, shaking. His bare feet were scraped and bleeding, his clothes torn by branches, or something worse. When he saw us, he burst into tears, clinging to Emily like he was afraid she'd vanish. "It was following me," he sobbed. "It wasn't an animal. It knew my name." His voice cracked on the last word. He said he'd been chased for hours. Every time he stopped, the thing would circle closer, whispering in a voice that sounded almost human but distorted, echoing like multiple versions of the same person speaking at once. He told us it only stopped when he reached the fire road, as if it couldn't or wouldn't cross it. We didn't ask more right away. Trauma makes memories sound like nightmares. We knew better than to push him. We just wanted to get him out. Together, we guided him back toward the main trail, keeping our lights scanning every direction, feeling watched with every step. More than once, I thought I saw movement in the trees, something tall, something careful. But every time I looked directly at it, it melted back into the forest, as though the shadows themselves were alive. We returned Logan safely to his family, but that night when I drove home, I saw something on the side of the road, 4 sharp impressions in the dirt, spaced perfectly, pressed deep like the prints we'd seen earlier, fresh, leading toward the trees. I didn't sleep, neither did Emily. The next morning, she knocked on my cabin door, eyes tired but determined. "Whatever's out there," she said, "it's not just wildlife, and it's not done." The disturbing things I've seen since then, the sounds, the faces glimpsed between branches, the trails that appear overnight only to vanish by morning, they all lead back to that summer, to the night we saved a boy who swore the forest was whispering his name. And the truth is, he wasn't wrong. I've heard it too, many times. Soft, distant, always right when I'm alone. Like the trees know we discovered something we weren't meant to. But there's one moment, the one I promised to tell you if you stayed until the end, that changed everything. It happened months later, when I was patrolling near the same overlook where Logan disappeared. I heard my name spoken behind me, clear as day. Not shouted, whispered, in a voice that sounded like my own. When I turned around, the forest was empty. But in the dirt, right behind my boot, were 4 perfect impressions, fresh. And for the first time in my career, I knew the forest didn't just contain secrets, it guarded them. And those who get too close, the forest remembers. I didn't tell anyone about the whisper that night, not even Emily. Some things feel too unreal to speak aloud, like the moment you say them, you're giving them power. But something shifted after that. The woods didn't feel like the place I had loved and trusted for years. It felt alive with intention, watching, waiting, and the strange thing was, the deeper I pushed into its mysteries, the more it felt like it was pushing back. In the weeks that followed, reports trickled in, small things easy for the higher-ups to dismiss. Campers hear footsteps around their tents long after quiet hours. A hunter spotting something tall and pale moving between trees, only for it to disappear without sound. Hikers claiming they heard someone calling their name, even though they were miles from the nearest person. No physical evidence, no injuries, nothing concrete enough to bring outside attention. But a pattern was forming, and Emily and I could feel it like a pressure behind our ribs. Something was escalating. Then one night, a call came into dispatch around 11:30 p.m. A woman crying breathless, saying she and her young daughter were seeing something near their campsite at Willow Run, a place known for its wild beauty and dangerous isolation. I was the closest ranger on duty. Emily insisted on joining me, even though technically she'd been off for hours. The drive felt longer than usual, the road twisting through trees that loomed too tall in the dark, their branches clawing across the sky like they were trying to hide the stars. When we arrived, the mother, Lena, ran toward us with her daughter clutching her shirt. They were shaking, terrified. Lena kept pointing toward the trees, trying to speak between gasps. It wasn't an animal, she whispered. It stood up, taller than any man I've seen, and it looked at us. She didn't need to say more. Emily and I exchanged a glance and gently guided them to the truck while we checked the area. We moved slowly toward the tree line, our flashlights sweeping the ground. At first, everything looked normal: pine needles, broken twigs, the remains of their small campfire. Then Emily's beam landed on something in the dirt. 4 impressions, deep, evenly spaced, fresh, but this time there were more of them. At least 3 sets, overlapping like whatever left them had been circling the campsite for a long time. Watching, a cold shiver ran up my spine as I scanned the dark timber ahead of us. I didn't see anything, but I felt it. That heavy, suffocating weight of being observed. Emily whispered, "We should get them out of here, now." We did. We helped pack up what little they could carry, ushered them into the truck, and drove them back to the visitor center where they could stay the night. The girl wouldn't let go of her mother's hand, and every few minutes she glanced out the window like she expected something to be running alongside us. After they were settled, Emily and I stood outside, breathing the cold air, trying to make sense of what was happening. She finally spoke, voice quiet. "It's getting bolder." I nodded, and "It's getting closer." Sleep became impossible after that. Every creak of the cabin, every shift of the wind against my window made my skin tighten. I started dreaming of trees closing around me like ribs, of voices calling my name from places just out of reach. And in every dream, I wasn't alone. But it wasn't until the incident at Horseshoe Gorge that the truth, or something close to it, finally broke through. It was early October, the air full of the bite of changing leaves. A group of experienced hikers had gone missing after failing to check in at their scheduled time. They were well prepared, knowledgeable, and had hiked the gorge a dozen times. Yet the moment the call came in, my gut twisted. Missing people were one thing. Missing experienced people in an area known for strange occurrences was another. Emily and I set out before sunrise. The hike to Horseshoe Gorge took nearly 4 hours, winding through dense forest, across creeks, and up steep stone ridges. The deeper we went, the more unnaturally quiet everything became. No birds, no insects, no wind. Just the sound of our boots crunching leaves and the unsettling thud of our own heartbeats. We found signs of the hikers around: noon discarded gear, boot prints, a torn jacket snagged on a branch. But something else stood out. Every personal item we found was laid out in a perfect line along the ground, not dropped accidentally, placed intentionally, as if someone or something wanted us to follow We did. It led us to the edge of the gorge, where mist curled up from below, and the air felt colder than it should have been. And there, near the cliffside, we found them. The hikers were huddled together, alive but terrified, eyes wide and unfocused. They weren't injured, but they couldn't explain what happened. All they could say was that they saw a figure standing at the tree line the night before, tall, still, staring at them. And when they moved camp to get away from it, the figure appeared again, closer and closer, until they couldn't run anymore because the forest itself seemed to shift around them. They weren't sure how they ended up near the gorge. They just remembered a voice whispering from somewhere deep in the woods, repeating their names over and over. We escorted them back carefully, but as we walked, I heard something behind us, a sound that didn't belong, a rhythmic tapping 4 heavy beats at a time echoing through the trees, matching our pace. Emily heard it too. She didn't say a word. She just moved closer to the group and kept her flashlight trained on the dark behind us. That night, after the hikers were safe, Emily sat on the tailgate of the truck, staring into nothing. "It's hunting," she said quietly. "Whatever it is, it's choosing people, following them, learning them." She looked up at me, eyes reflecting the fear she'd been hiding for months. "And I think it knows we're onto it." I wanted to tell her she was wrong, that it was just stress, coincidence, our minds filling in gaps. But that would have been a lie, because I knew exactly what she meant. I'd felt it too, that sense that the forest wasn't reacting to random people. It was reacting to us. And then the realization struck me harder than any blow. The first strange thing we encountered. The prints that shouldn't exist, the whispers, the figure in the trees. It all began after we saved Logan. Like rescuing him had crossed some invisible boundary. Like something in the forest didn't want him to leave, or didn't want us to interfere. And now, whatever lived in those woods wasn't just a mystery. I was aware, intelligent, and focused. The next few days felt like walking on a tightrope stretched between 2 trees that never stopped swaying. Every shift of wind, every snap of a twig behind me felt too timed, too deliberate. Emily felt it too. We tried to keep things normal, filing reports, patrolling trails, helping tourists, but underneath the routine was a growing, silent dread. Something in Pine Valley had woken up, or maybe it had always been awake, but we had only just learned how to hear it. 3 nights after the rescue at Horseshoe Gorge, I stayed late in the ranger station, finishing paperwork. The building was old, wooden beams, creaking floors, windows that rattled during storms. Around midnight, the lights flickered once, then steadied. I kept writing. A minute later, they flickered again. Then I went out completely. The darkness inside the station was thick. Even with my flashlight, the beams seemed swallowed, unable to reach the corners. I stood still, listening. The building made its usual settling noises. But then another sound joined them. Soft, slow breathing. Not mine, not any animal I recognized. It came from somewhere deeper inside the station. Maybe the supply room or the hallway near the back exit. I called out quietly, "Hello?" No answer. I took a few steps, the boards groaning under my weight. The breathing stopped instantly, like whoever, or whatever, made the sound had been holding its breath the entire time. My pulse hammered at my ribs. Every instinct told me to get out, but curiosity anchored my feet. I stopped at the end of the hallway, lifted my flashlight, and shined it ahead. 4 impressions were in the dust on the floorboards, deep, perfect, as if made moments before. Something cold brushed the back of my neck, like fingers trailing gently over my skin. I spun around, but nothing was there, just darkness pressing tight against the walls. That was when I realized the breathing sound hadn't stopped. It had only moved. It was now coming from outside, just beyond the back door. Slow, heavy, rhythmic. I didn't wait to see what made it. I grabbed my radio and stumbled outside through the front entrance, forcing my breath to steady. The forest around the station stood silent, the treetops unmoving even though the air felt cold enough to bite. When I reached the gravel lot, I froze. Emily's truck was parked beside mine, but Emily wasn't on duty. I scanned the area until I saw her sitting on the ground near the edge of the trees, her back against a stump, head buried in her hands. I rushed toward her, calling her name. When she looked up, her eyes were red, her face streaked with tears. "I can't do this anymore," she whispered. Her voice trembled like she'd been holding in a scream for hours. I heard it outside my cabin. It kept whispering my name over and over, like it was right outside the window. I didn't see anything, but I could feel it watching. I knelt beside her, my hand on her shoulder. "You're not alone. I've been hearing things too." "No," she said, shaking her head. "Not like this." She wiped her tears with trembling fingers. "You remember the hikers said it repeated their names, same voice, same rhythm. Tonight it used yours and mine together like it's learning us." A chill crawled down my spine. I didn't want to believe it, but the fear in her eyes was real, raw enough to taste. Before I could respond, her radio crackled suddenly, loud enough to make us both jump. A distorted voice came through. It was static, heavy, glitching, but there were words buried under the interference. "A North Ridge. Help," I then silence. We both knew that area. North Ridge was where Logan had first vanished into the forest. I helped Emily stand, though she was trembling so badly she nearly collapsed. We grabbed supplies, flashlights, radios, and drove to the trailhead. The night felt wrong, thicker, like the darkness had weight. Our headlights barely cut through it as we parked and stepped out onto the dirt path. We began the climb up the ridge, our breathing turning to mist in the cold. Halfway up, our radios crackled again, but this time there was no voice. Just a slow tapping. 4 taps, pause, 4 taps, pause, the same rhythm we heard in the woods, the same rhythm we'd felt stalking us. Emily stopped, her breath catching. "It's leading us somewhere, or luring us," I said, but turning back wasn't an option. Something was happening on this ridge, and we couldn't ignore it. When we reached the top, the moon broke through the clouds, illuminating the overlook where Logan had stood months before. The trees swayed slightly in the wind, finally moving again after nights of terrifying stillness. For a moment, it felt almost peaceful. Then a figure stepped out from between the trees. Emily gasped, stumbling backward. My flashlight beam snapped to it. It was tall, too tall, at least 7 feet. Its limbs were long, narrow, wrong in a way the human eye isn't meant to process. Its skin was pale, stretched tight like bark, stripped of color. But the worst part wasn't its shape. It was its face, because it didn't have one. Just smooth skin where eyes and features should have been except for a slight indent, like something underneath was pressing outward, trying to break through. Emily grabbed my arm, nails digging into my jacket. "We need to go," she whispered. The thing tilted its head slightly, as if studying us. Then it stepped forward, and the forest behind it seemed to move with it, branches swaying even though the air had gone still again. Leaves rustling in a rhythm that matched the tapping we heard earlier. 4 beats, 4 beats, 4 beats. It took one more step, and I felt a vibration under my boots. The ground wasn't shaking. It was humming. The same low tone we heard in the station. The same sound from that clearing months before. The creature raised its elongated hand, not to strike, not to reach for us, but to point behind us. I turned slowly. Across the dirt, illuminated by the moonlight, were dozens of 4-part impressions. Leading into the woods, not away from us, toward us. Emily's voice cracked. "There's more than one," the forest around us whispered. Soft voices drifting through the trees, overlapping, layered. And some of them were our voices, repeating our names, our words, our breath. The things out there had been following us long before we realized it. "Run," I said. We bolted down the ridge, branches smacking our faces, roots clawing at our boots. The forest behind us erupted with movement fast, unnatural, silent between footfalls. Emily stumbled once, but I grabbed her arm before she fell. The whispers grew louder, closer, merging into a sound that didn't belong to any living thing. When we reached the trucks, we didn't look back. I slammed the doors, started the engine, and tore down the gravel road as the shadows of the trees bent toward us like they were reaching. We didn't stop driving until we were miles away, where the forest thinned and the weight on our chests finally eased. But even there, sitting in the safety of dim streetlights, Emily whispered something I'll never forget. It wasn't just following us tonight. It was choosing one of us. And deep down, I knew she was right. Whatever lives in Pine Valley doesn't just watch, it selects. And the next time we stepped into those woods, one of us might not come back. We sat in that parking lot for nearly an hour, neither of us saying much. Emily leaned back in her seat, staring at the sky like she expected the stars to rearrange and spell out a warning. I kept my hands tight on the steering wheel, even after the engine had gone silent. My knuckles turned white. The creature's faceless head, the perfect footprints crowding the dirt like signatures left by something ancient and patient. That image wouldn't stop replaying in my mind. Eventually, Emily broke the silence. I don't think we're supposed to tell anyone. The idea made my stomach twist. She wasn't wrong. Who would believe us? Our supervisors already thought we were overly stressed. If we brought them a story about faceless giants and voices mimicking our names, we'd be pulled off duty before sunrise. And what then? The forest would still be there. The things inside it would still be watching. I finally said, "We need to figure out what it wants." Emily turned, eyes filled with exhausted fear. What if it doesn't want anything? What if it's just hungry? The thought hit harder than I expected. For the next few days, we stayed out of the woods unless absolutely necessary. We stuck to administrative work, answering visitor questions, processing permits, safe, bright, normal tasks that didn't require stepping beneath the trees. But even inside the station, I felt them, that same presence, that hum beneath the floorboards, shadows that seemed to stretch just a little too far. The woods didn't need to reach out physically. They had patience. They knew we'd have to come back eventually. And we did. The incident that forced us back happened on a cold morning just before sunrise. Dispatch radioed in. A young man named Carter, hiking alone, hadn't returned to his campsite. His friends had gone to look for him around 3 a.m., only to find his tent shredded, backpack gone, and the fire pit crushed into the dirt. They heard something moving in the trees, but couldn't see what it was. One of them reported hearing Carter's voice, but in the wrong direction from where the footprints led. A detail that chilled me more than the cold ever could. Emily didn't hesitate. We have to go. And she was right. Whatever was happening in Pine Valley wasn't stopping, not for fear, not for reason, not for the desperate prayers of those who found themselves lost in its depths. We geared up quietly. My hands shook as I checked my flashlight batteries. Emily kept glancing at the tree line as though expecting something to step out at any moment. The woods at dawn were gray and skeletal, fog clinging low to the ground. The search team followed protocol, but I could tell from the tension in their voices they sensed something off. Some refused to split into pairs. Others insisted on holding radios tighter than usual. The forest wasn't just quiet. It was listening. We followed the trail to the area where Carter had last been seen. Trees leaned in around the site like tall, silent witnesses. His tent was exactly as described, torn, shredded from the inside out, not like an animal clawing its way in, but like a person trying desperately to escape. The ground around it had the familiar 4 impressions in the dirt, dozens of them, but there was something new. A mark on a tree trunk, a deep gouge, about chest height. The wood peeled back like something extremely strong had dragged its fingers, if you could call those narrow extensions fingers along the bark. Emily touched the grooves gently, then drew her hand back quickly. "It's fresh," she said, "hours old." I didn't want to imagine what hours meant in this forest. We continued deeper, calling Carter's name. Our voices echoed strangely, bouncing back distorted. At one point, I called out and swear I heard someone whisper my own voice back to me, but stretched. Pulled thin, wrong. The fog grew thicker as we descended toward the river. The trees twisted in unfamiliar ways, branches bending like limbs frozen mid-motion. That was when we heard it, a sob, weak, wet. Humans, we froze. Emily lifted her hand, signaling the team to stop. The sobbing came again, from somewhere in the fog to our right, but the footprints they left. One of the other rangers whispered, "Someone's crying, could be him." Emily leaned toward me. "It's the same trick, isn't it?" I nodded. These things, or this thing, didn't just stalk, it was imitated. It lured. Still, we couldn't ignore the sound. We approached with caution, stepping through wet leaves and exposed roots, our lights cutting narrow tunnels in the fog. The crying grew louder, more desperate, breaking on gasps. It sounded like a person on the verge of drowning in their own breath. When we emerged into a small clearing, I saw him, Carter, or at least something shaped like him. He sat with his knees pulled to his chest, face buried in his hands, shoulders shaking. His clothes were torn, his hair matted with dirt. Relief surged through me, but only for a second, because something was wrong with the way he was sobbing. It didn't sound natural. Each cry was too evenly spaced, like someone copying a sound without understanding the emotion behind it. Like an imitation of grief rather than grief itself. Emily stepped forward. "Carter," he jerked upright. His face was wrong, not monstrous, just wrong in a subtle, uncanny way. His eyes were too wide, pupils blown so large the irises were barely visible. His mouth twitched at the corners, stretching into a shape that resembled a smile but had none of its warmth. "Help," he whispered, but the voice wasn't right. It was layered, echoed, like someone had taken his voice and played it back through a cracked speaker. Emily grabbed my arm, hard, before anyone could move. Carter, or whatever wore his shape, tilted his head in a slow, unnatural angle. And then something behind him moved, something tall, pale, faceless. It stepped out from behind the trees the way a nightmare unfolds from a shadow, gradual, horrifyingly fluid. Its presence made the air vibrate. The forest around us went silent, as if even the wind refused to breathe. The creature stood behind Carter's form and placed a long, unnatural hand on his shoulder. The mimicry collapsed like a puppet with cut strings. Carter's body slumping into the dirt as though it had never been alive at all. Just a shell, a decoy. Emily screamed, "Run!" We bolted. The rangers behind us scattered through the trees, crashing through branches, slipping across wet leaves. I didn't dare look back. The forest seemed to move around us, narrowing paths that were once clear, opening new ones that hadn't existed seconds before. I could hear the thing's steps behind us. Slow, deliberate, impossibly heavy. 4 beats. Pause. 4 beats. Pause. Emily tripped on a root, and I hauled her up by the jacket, breath burning in my lungs. The whispering began again, our names, repeated in a dozen overlapping voices. Sometimes mine, sometimes Emily's, sometimes voices we didn't recognize. When we finally reached the main trail, the noise stopped. The forest froze for a full minute. Nothing moved, not us, not the trees, not even the mist. Then, slowly, from deep in the woods, a single whisper drifted out. Next time, it used my voice. That was when I realized the truth. These things, however many there were, weren't just hunting randomly. They were teaching us, and they were patient.